Today on Locked On Red Wings, can Patrick Kane's production defy Father's Time one more season?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, and thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty, it's time for our final player preview episode. After this one, we'll have to get a little bit more creative, I suppose, but we are capping off with, they say saving best for last. I think you can probably attach that to this player, at least historically, if not the greatest American to ever lace him up, Patrick Kane. We'll talk about him in segment 1, what we expect of him in segment 2. We'll talk about probably, I'm going to say this in air quotes, the most exciting option for the third pair in Jacob Bernard-Docker, before finishing up with the potential rookie to make the roster, Carter Mazur. But before we get to that, I got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Scotty, Patrick Kane bounced back after a sluggish start to last season and finished with a strong 21 goals and 59 points. Entering this season and another year older, 36 years old to be exact, are you expecting his production to keep up like it was last year and the season prior, or do you expect it to dip a little bit with age?
I think there's a lot of different angles for that question. If anything to me is going to fall off, like it's pointless to say the defense. The defense isn't falling off. It was really never there. Okay, at least in a Red Wings uniform, really in a Blackhawks uniform too. But certainly
that's not why they had him. No,
right, a lot less now than it even ever was. So that part, if you want to focus on the fact that he's going to be a traffic cone defensively, that's fine. I think that the one area where I don't even know if concerned is the right word. That might even be too dramatic. But the one area that I am highlighting, that I am watching for to see if the production is going to fall off, is even strength offense. I feel like that was inconsistent would be probably the best way you could put it last year. It was really ineffective under the loaned, and then it kind of turned around a little bit, that production. And really, you could say that about his production across the board when McLellan took over. But I do not worry about Patrick Kane being an absolute force on the power play. I am probably never going to worry about that ever for the rest of his NHL career. I don't care if he's 50. If he's out there with a man advantage and he's quarterbacking a power play, I'm going to be confident in it. I do think that with the downturn we've seen out of him in skating and in speed, that there is something to be said for, is he going to maintain a level of production offensively that justifies him being a top 6 guy when referring to the even strength offense? I think he absolutely still should be on the second line to start the year. I think that odds are pretty good that he's fine in that role. I'm not saying I expect him to do that, but if there is any area that I think could take a step back, it's probably that one.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to play second line. Whether or not he would be playing second line on a Stanley Cup contender is a different conversation. But on this iteration of the Red Wings, especially on this iteration of the Red Wings that has Alex DeBrincat on it, it just makes sense to keep them together and have them playing second line. He is a second line winger on this team. Everything you said about the power play is so true. In fact, he had a 69 percentile offense according to Evolving Hockey. All of that came from the power play offense that he provided. All of it. Because even strength, he was just above replacement level according to Evolving Hockey in terms of even strength offense. But his power play offense was so great that he still ended up being a 69 percentile. I don't need to talk too much about his defense. He fell outside of the range that Evolving Hockey can plot in even strength defense. He was 2 percentile defensively. But that also, I'm not surprised for all the reasons that you already stated. He was a 35-year-old offense first winger who's had hips resurfaced and never really got engaged in board battles to begin with. If you're expecting that out of Patrick Kane, you're going to be disappointed. We are not expecting that out of Patrick Kane. We are just expecting Patrick Kane to continue to do what he did this past season because of the fact of this the IQ, the stick handling, the playmaking on the power play. Those are all things that will continue to age. As you put it, you can put him out there at 50, and those things are going to continue to be there because it doesn't rely on being fast. It doesn't rely on being heavy. It relies on being able to think the game better than everyone else on the ice, and that's something that doesn't age. So that's why he's been able to defy Father Time, defy these injuries, and continue to put up impressive production despite being 35 years old. I would expect it again. Now, I do think you do have to take in the age to some degree. While I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up 65 points next year, I also wouldn't be surprised if it dips and falls from 59 points to 55 points. If Patrick Kane gives us a point total in the 50s at 36 years old, I will have him in the meeting expectations category. Because at some point, you do expect the Father Time to come for everything eventually. But it's just it comes so slowly for the things that he excels so well at that even if it's a few points less, I still think he's going to provide quite a bit of offense on those power plays. It's just going to be at 5-on-5. He'll be continue to get incredibly sheltered deployments like he did last year. I think the bigger question here, Scotty, is we saw his breakout last year, his rebound last year kind of coincide with Todd McLellan, as he did with a lot of players. Now, I think it did predate it by about a week or two. He started to heat up in the last 2 weeks alone being around. But can a full season of McLellan kind of keep that point production higher across the full 82 rather than having to get hot at the last half of the season?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, you could really say that about almost anybody, right? Like, we're looking for consistency. We want that level of production to be maintained. And I think that, again, as I stated, I'm not worried about him being consistently a threat in the power play. I think he will be. Every time he steps on the ice with a man advantage, I expect something to happen, fair or not. And I think that that's a testament to how great he is in that regard. I think that it really is going to come down to the even strength, because there is a world where at the end of the season we're like, okay, do you even keep throwing him out there in the top 6, or do you just give him bottom 6 minutes with power play 1? I don't think that's like completely out of the realm of possibility. Now, again, to start off the season, he's going to be on the second line. He should be on the second line. I'm not trying to say otherwise, but I think that I think like objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Like, I don't think that's that far away from reality either. That's all.
Okay, but then my question to you would be, if you think that there is a reality in which Patrick Kane could fall off the second line, which I don't think you're necessarily wrong, well, then somebody has to fill that role. Who's a better second line option on the right side right now than Patrick Kane? I mean, there's definitely faster players that can get engaged in board battles. But when it comes to providing the offense that Patrick Kane does, I struggle to think there's that many better options.
Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. You would rework how the second line is deployed. I mean, you would completely kind of revamp the entire thing. You would have to move Kane off the second line. You'd keep, obviously, Kasper and Cat there. That's still pretty darn solid line in theory. And I don't know, you put somebody there that maybe is a little bit more defensive. That way you have Kasper and Cat, who hopefully can supply offense. And then you have maybe a defensive guy, so him and Kasper can be deployed in the defensive zone. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's a much bigger picture conversation. Again, I cannot stress enough, I'm not trying to say like Patrick Kane needs to get off the second line or he's washed or whatever. He deserves to be in that spot. He will be in that spot until proven otherwise. I just think it's important to get ahead of these conversations before the season starts. That's all.
Yeah, and I think if you, again, you said big picture, and I agree. It's like, but if you take Kane off the second line, then what's your reason to not then reunite DeBrincat on the top line with Raymond and Larkin,
Sure.
players who can feed him the puck, much like he needs a guy who
Well,
can feed
I
him the
mean,
puck.
depth. It could just be like a blue line, like an Edvinsson situation where it's like, well, we don't want literally everyone who can score on one line. So, like, I mean, it could just be a situation as simple as that. I also think part of it, again, there's a lot of nuance to it. It's not something that's really, I don't know, cut and dry in August. But, I mean, yeah, if somebody in the bottom six is having a really solid season, which hopefully at least
Please.
one person
One
down
guy.
there is, then like that becomes a much clearer picture once they're playing games. But again, I'll reiterate for a third time, he should be in the top six. He will be in the top six, and I don't expect him to like not be. I just think that with somebody that has gone through his injury history and is at his age, it's important to at least like keep that in the back of your mind as a possibility. That's all.
Yeah, we definitely hope and kind of need him to continue to be at least second line worthy.
If the Wings are going to be a playoff team, they're going to need Patrick Kane to produce offensively. Yes.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about Jacob Bernard-Docker, probably our most exciting guy to talk about for third pair candidates. Then don't think third pair candidate and exciting really go together in the same sentence very well, but we'll talk about it. Segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings coming up. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money, without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. We do have an important request as well. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us as a network what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping out. Scotty, Jacob Bernard-Docker, 25 years old, was not qualified by the Buffalo Sabres at the end of the season. He was an RFA. They didn't qualify him. They released him to free agency. Scotty, when it comes to Jacob Bernard-Docker, there's a lot of competition for that third pair. There's Eric Gustafsson. There's obviously JBD. There's Travis Hamonic.
There's a lot of bodies.
There's Justin Holl. There's a lot of bodies. Where do you find him fitting in to that competition? Do you think he's kind of near the top of that list? Do you think he's going to be fighting for a spot on the roster? Do you think it's going to be a rotation?
I don't even know, man. I am. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that battle, I guess, shakes out during and throughout the preseason and throughout camp for sure. But probably a little bit of everything you just said. Like that, I don't think that the odds of one guy, or I guess two guys, like nailing down that third pair spot permanently, and that's just going to be it for 82 games, I think is pretty much slim to none. I think it's going to be somewhat of a rotation depending on who they can keep in their organization going into the regular season. But I do think that Docker is probably in the upper, half of all of those names you just mentioned, 4 or 5 names. he's probably in the upper half of that conversation. I think that there is at least maybe not he's only 25 years old. There's not a super long track record, but like he's played, a full season before with a decent hockey team. And I think that there is at least something to be said for giving him a serious look over the Justin Halls of the world, maybe, and seeing if he can bring something else to this bottom pair for sure.
Yeah, he played 40 games last season between the Senators and the Buffalo Sabres. He was part of the Cousins trade, going from the Senators to the Sabres. He had 8 points in those 40 games. He's somebody that Senators fans actually really were high on. Sabres fans were shocked they did not keep. He's played 115 minutes of penalty kill time in his career. He is above replacement level in his career because at least in the last 3 years, I should say. There was not enough data on him last year to get 1 year snapshot on him on Evolving Hockey. So I had to do a 3 year snapshot to get enough data. He was above replacement level offensively and defensively in sheltered minutes. He can play some PK. Buffalo Sabres and Ottawa fans say that he's an offensive defenseman. So he and Eric Gustafsson, in theory, if they're going to be sheltered anyways and getting offensive zone deployments, okay, maybe create a little bit of a glass cannon style defensive pairing. There's ideas there, and the fact that he's 25 and he's still in the development window means that I kind of have the most bias towards him. I don't have enough track record. I mean, obviously you have way more track record with Travis Hamonic and Justin Holl on what those guys are, and a lot of times teams will go with the devil they know rather than the devil they don't when it comes to playing time. But because, to me, Bernard-Docker is an unknown, and you have Ottawa and Buffalo fans saying that when he played, he was fun to watch. He and Eric Gustafsson are my third pair in my head, at least before going into training camp. Like, that's the guy I want to see the most because he's the guy I know the least about.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. I think that he's played 144 games in 5 NHL seasons, right? Like, he's really only played even over half of a season at the NHL level one time in his career up to this point. Like, that's not a mistake, but at the same time, I feel like there is at least a little bit of something to hold on to. And at the end of the day, you don't have to be fast when the bear is chasing you. You just have to be faster than your friends, right? Like, he's not, you're comparing him to the other options at third pair. That is ultimately what this competition is. And I agree with you on the sentiment that I don't need to see any more Justin Holl, man. I know what he is, and I just have a really hard time believing that all of the other names you just mentioned, all the other, whatever it is, 4 or 5 names that are going to throw their hat in that ring for third pair are all going to be worse than what we know Justin Holl is at this point in his NHL career, and him being another year older. Like, I have zero issue with just throwing out there kind of an unknown and seeing what happens. And if it crashes and burns and that doesn't work, then guess what? You just go back to Justin Holl and get well below league average production for whatever, the second half of the season or whenever you decide to pull the plug on that experiment. So I have zero issue with that. And I think that really in the preseason, we are going to see a billion different pair combinations. I think we're just going to see an absolute hodgepodge of pairs on that blue line in all the preseason games and in training camp. So yeah, someone to keep an eye out for sure. And I think, to your point, if there is a way to word, who has the highest ceiling amongst third pair options, I mean, it's probably him.
Yeah, it's just you're sifting through the trash to find a diamond at this point when it comes to third pair. That sounds terrible because I just equated everyone on the third pair option as trash, but it was an analogy. You're just trying to find the diamond in the rough. How's that? That's better. I just lean towards JBD because I have the least amount of information on what he is. I only have hearsay to know what he is. I know relative to his teammates, He had a positive Corsi for percentage with both teams he played with last year, but again, sheltered third pair minutes. If we're talking about who has the highest ceiling to give us on the third pair, it's probably him, but he might also have the lowest floor too, because he played 75 games the year before last year, and then he went down to 40 this year. He lost minutes to guys like Travis Hamonic, because again, he played on the same team with Travis Hamonic.
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm trying not to get my hopes too high. It's just, you're kind of pinning your hopes on this guy to kind of stabilize the third pair, and it's almost unfair because maybe there was a reason he was let go from the Buffalo Sabres without a qualifying offer. So I don't know. He's a little bit of a wild card.
Again, ultimately, this is his third team in a calendar year, and he has played in 144 hockey games across 5 seasons. Like,
So,
that is not on accident.
As far as expectation goes, because I don't think we ever set an expectation, I'll say my expectation is, I'll say this: if he plays over half of the season, he will have exceeded my expectations because there's just so many options on the third.
Sure, I think that's fair.
So 41 plus games is one more game than he played last year.
41 games would be the second most he's ever played in a season.
Right. All right. Segment 3 coming up. We're going to talk about Carter Mazur, somebody who only played 1 minute in the NHL so far. Stay tuned for that. Segment 3 coming up. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it fits however you want to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team on or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by you visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Scotty, Carter Mazur finally made his NHL debut last season, and unfortunately it was short-lived as he went down with an injury in his first shift, or second shift. He only played about 1 minute 40 seconds, dislocated his elbow, ended his season right then and there. Very disappointing debut, I'm sure, for him more than anybody else after the highs of playing, local boy, climbing his way up through the organization, getting an NHL debut. For it to end like that, it's got to be heartbreaking, but I also have a feeling that it's going to add fuel to the fire to come back even stronger this year and maybe make the Red Wings opening night roster. And I think for me, that's the primary question, is with as many bodies as the Red Wings have under NHL contract, can Carter Mazur make the opening night roster? And if so, who do you see him beating out for a roster spot?
First off, 1 minute 10 seconds exactly, according to hockeyreference.com. It's just so funny that the season is 1 game played, 0 of every single stat, and 110 average time on ice. So I think that, to answer your first question, I absolutely think Carter Mazur can make the NHL roster on opening night. And I think that, honestly, that's going to be one of the bigger storylines in camp and in the preseason, is going to be the increased or decreased odds of that happening, overlooking every single detail and being way too overreactionary as we tend to do. I think that is something that, again, totally can happen. And I think that we've talked about that a lot really over the last couple of years. This is a guy that the Wings are not going to feel bad about promoting to the NHL and giving third and fourth line minutes, because that's probably what his long-term role is anyway at the NHL level,
sure.
And that's fine. He's a dog. He's a grinder. He can give you a lot of valuable minutes down there in that bottom 6 role. In terms of who he could beat out, I mean, not to sound dramatic, but take your pick. Like, I don't think any of there are very few guys in the bottom 6 or reserve roles that I'm like, this guy has to make the NHL roster or else. Like Soderblom is in there, I guess. Rasmussen is probably in there. But like, as a whole, I mean, if they announced the day before opening night that Mazur made the Red Wings roster and they're cutting Berggren, I wouldn't have any negative emotions toward that. Like we talked about Austin Watson yesterday. He's not expected to make
one.
Right. He's not expected to make the team. Like there's plenty of guys in that mix that if they lost out, quote unquote, to Carter Mazur for the a spot on this roster, I would not be shocked. A, because I think Mazur's good at hockey, but B, I don't think I would feel, again, like super negative toward the team about that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the roster as it is on Puckpedia right now. They have Austin Watson on the NHL roster. To me, like, that's the big one. We just spoke about Austin Watson yesterday, and we said that the idea is that Austin Watson is surpassed on the depth chart, not because of anything, not in a bad way. Like, we want him to be passed because we want youth. And Mazur was one of the guys we were kind of referring to when we talked about that, to surpass him on the depth chart and become the go-to guy to be called up and play on this NHL roster. But to your credit, like you mentioned, Jonathan Berggren as another guy. I think just simply because of style of game wise, like they'd probably try and carry both. But
Berggren's going to make the team. I wasn't trying to throw a hot take out there. I'm just saying there are. If you really wanted Mazur to be on the opening night roster, you could find space. It's not. You wouldn't have to, reinvent the wheel in order to find a roster spot for him. That's all.
Yeah. And you're also carrying 8 defensemen. So you could very easily, waive a defenseman and send it down to the minors in order to make roster spot for Mazur if you want to continue to carry Austin Watson as well. So, there are options. The path isn't there. Honestly, I think the hardest thing for Mazur, I think he has 100% the ability to beat out a couple of the guys on the roster already to help raise the floor of this hockey team. I think the bigger question is can he beat out his contemporaries to make this roster? Because you're going to have other guys like Nate Danielson, ASP, first-round picks who are going to be trying to make this roster. And in one way, I think Carter Mazur has an easier path because his path to the NHL is third, fourth line minutes, whereas with Nate Danielson, his path to the NHL is probably top 6 minutes. So I think the path is easier for Carter Mazur in that regard. But if you're talking about adding a player to your roster that raises the ceiling rather than the floor, you would obviously go with a Nate Danielson if he's ready, or an ASP if he's ready. Not again, I know ASP doesn't play the same position, but if you need a 23-man roster, someone's got to go at some point from somewhere. So it's just, I think the tougher path for him is can he beat out his contemporaries rather than can he beat out some of these low-hanging bottom 6, bottom pair defensemen and forwards on his own on the roster already. Because Carter Mazur already made this team once. So, will he make the opening night roster? I don't know. Will he play in the NHL at some point this season? I'm pretty confident he will.
Yeah, barring injury, he absolutely is going to record, at least 1 minute in the NHL roster this year for sure.
Can he break his record for minutes played?
Right. Can he even double his time on ice from last season?
That's what we're talking about too, is he's struggled to stay healthy in his NHL career. A lot of it's unfortunate. Like
part of play style. We used to say the same thing about Bert. Like, okay, Bert's not going to stop playing how Bert plays. And that led to a long injury-riddled Red Wings career. I'm not saying that there's a direct comparison there. I'm just saying that I think part of that is just the physicality and kind of the again, bottom 6 grinder type that he is. Like that's probably just going to happen throughout his career.
Yeah. And I think whenever we talk about players, we kind of are always assuming health because you can't predict health. So it's kind of pointless to talk about if this player can stay healthy. Well, no crap. If the player can stay healthy, if they're injured, they're not going to be much of a factor.
Every single dude in the NHL going into every season. Yeah.
So assuming Mazur's healthy, I think he has a realistic chance to make the opening night roster. And if he doesn't, I still think he's going to be on this team at some point during the season because of injuries and because of play. Sure. Like if he's playing great in Grand Rapids and there's players struggling here, I wouldn't think they'd hesitate to make that play, to make that change. So I think I don't know how to set the expectation for him. I think graduating to full-time NHLer at some point this season is the expectation, but I can't set a game's play.
I'll even put the finish line further back. I think if we just, at the end of the year, if we are confident that he is a solidified NHL bottom 6 guy going into next season, whether that's because he had a good 2 weeks in April or whether he's been up for 7 months, I don't really care. If we are legitimately confident in him being a bottom 6 guy on this team going into next season and for the future, then I think that's a successful season no matter how many games he plays.
Yep. I think that's a good place as any to end it. Scotty, do you have any final thoughts on anything we talked about today? We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Friday. Stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.